Perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And are we live on the Escape Haven Method as well?
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Welcome to my annual growth review workshop. I am on retreat at the moment in Bali. I'm here with some of our beautiful guests on and off camera, and we're just going to take the next 45 minutes, maybe an hour depending on how fast I talk, but just to go through a practice that I love to do every year. I smiled when I was thinking about it this morning because I do this with my husband on an annual basis, and having just celebrated New Year's, I remember in 2019, just before we got married, we used to have a launch in New Zealand and we'd go away to this beautiful place called the Great Mercury Islands, and it was New Year's Eve, and I was like, let's do our growth review workshop. This is going to be so fun. And it was coming up to New Year's Eve, and at the time they'd lined the beach with all of these people where they're trying to break the world's longest tequila line on Great Mercury Island. Do you know that in New Zealand? It's a beautiful island there. And so Trent abandoned me. He jumped ship, said blow the growth review workshop, jumped overboard the boat, swam to the beach instead and celebrated New Year's. So he's thrilled that I didn't do it on New Year's this time and I'm doing it with you guys instead. So thank you on behalf of him for joining me for this, so he didn't have to on New Year's Eve. But anyway, welcome to 2025. I can't believe that we're actually already here and we're 2 days in. It's pretty exciting, isn't it? Rather than jumping straight into planning, the reason that I do this workshop and go through this process is that it's really easy just to jump into doing our planning, setting our goals, thinking about what we're going to achieve and what systems we're going to put in place and how we're going to measure that. And I think it's really remiss to do that without going through a reflections process. So this is actually what stage one is. There's 4 stages, but what I'm taking you through today is just stage 1 of the process that I go through. And that is looking at the highs and the lows, the good, the bad, the ugly, the speed bumps, the U-turns, the forks in the road that happened over the previous year. And the reason for that is if we don't acknowledge those lessons, those growth and the relationships that shaped our year, then what can happen is we can end up, being Groundhog Day and making the same mistakes, having the same lessons, having the same issues that we faced last year. And so then we end up having exactly the same year. And let's face it, none of us want the exact same year, do we? We always want to look like we are growing and we are evolving and changing year after year. And so that's why I really take the time to honour this reflections piece. This is where I spend the most time, believe it or not, more so than my wheel of life, which comes next, and my goal setting, because I believe the more that we can really soak up the experience, because that's what lessons are. They're experience that these bumps in the road have taught us, and then that therefore can shape our path if we allow ourselves to really have the time and space to look at it. So that's why I start with this. But I wanted to ask, who else does an annual review process? Does anyone else do an annual review? No. Anyone else out there? Puru, can you see anyone commenting about annual review process? No. Okay, great. Well, I'm glad you're here for my one. And so, yeah, it's just a really great opportunity to take that time to really think about why we're doing what we're doing effectively. And the reason, we've got someone else joining. Hi. Here you go. You have one of these. Just pass that over. And one of the other beautiful reasons and why I lay down these plans is, when we start a year and we start traversing it, when we're intentional about what we're doing or how we're doing it, then we don't get that decision fatigue. And we have enough decisions to make during the year. So being able to not have to reset our goals or reset our plans or our habits that underpin those or our systems that's just one thing that's off the table. So it's a really nice way in terms of being really conscious of how you approach and set up your 2025. Instead of just letting life happen to you, you're consciously choosing to direct life and the energy and the momentum that you start your year with. And however you start will give a really good indication of how your year is going to progress. So we only have 1 hour together, so I want to make this work as well as we can. So it means that we don't have a lot of time to reflect on each of those questions. Does everyone have their growth review workbook? Just this little thing here. It's handy to print this out. If you don't have that, that's perfectly okay. What you can do is you can just, as I'm talking through the questions, just write them down and write down the answers and then grab it later and print it off. But for now, I always like to say, just make sure that you're comfortable, make sure you're in a distraction-free place. I have 2 little kids, so I know the importance of that. So as best you can, I understand it's school holidays, but try and find a distraction-free place. Have a cup of tea. I always like to have a nice drink when I'm doing something that requires a little bit of cognitive, undertaking, and also a pen as well. So I'll just give you a minute just to get ready, get your environment sorted out before we dive into everything. Elizabeth, would you like a drink? Oh, great. Just get one of the... Pudu, can we just ask one of the ladies for a Desi for a tea? Ginger tea. Thank you. I'm just going to have a look at some of the little comments while I'm waiting for everyone to get settled.
Yeah. This is Anne.
Yeah, great.
So this is what.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that phone now and just sign that off to put it all through the escape haven. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So ladies, we're going to drop through now to the escape haven method. So if you can just go to the stories above, click on the link and you'll come through to us at our private Facebook group. Thank you very much. Look forward to doing the workshop over there. Bye. Okay. Share. Perfect. And share. Okay. All right. Just pull this up on the escape haven method. And here we are. Great. There you are. But you ladies aren't. That's awesome. Okay. All right, now I can see all your comments, ladies. I feel connected to you now, so this is great. Thank you, Melissa. I'm so pleased you like the renovations and can see them. Yeah, you're right. They had just started when Cal and you were there. Isn't that cool? Hi, Kat. Hi, Susie. We can't wait to have you back with us. We're so excited. Hope you're having a beautiful summer down on Lake Taupo. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Natasha. All right, so let's jump in. So if we go to the first question, and hi, Nitha. If we go to the first question in our growth review book, the first one that I look at is called My Joy List. So I call it My Joy List. And as the name suggests, it's looking at all of the things that bring you joy. And the reason that I start with this is really intentional. So often in life, and especially as planning, we need to look at the highs and the lows to get that balanced perspective. But our brain has a negativity bias. So naturally, it's going to go to the worst things that have happened, because those are the things that we can remember, and that's how we are neurologically built to remember those. So I always like to start with the positives, because just from a mindset perspective, when we start with the positives and the things that have gone well, is it opens our mind. When we start with the negatives and the things that didn't go well, the opposite happens and we start to shrink and sort of close down our mind. So that's why I always start here, and I start thinking about what were all of those things that brought me joy. And they don't have to be big things at all. Often it's the little things, but it's just being able to remember those and to acknowledge them and to pay homage to them, because those are the things, it's the little things that often become the big things that really do shape our year. And I remember when I first started doing this, which was many years ago, it was in my early entrepreneurial days at Escape Haven, and I got really stuck when I was doing this. I wrote this big blog on my whole journey with this joy list, and that I would write every week. And I remember when I first started doing it, I was deep in my entrepreneurial journey, didn't have a clue what I was doing, trying to get Escape Haven off the ground, working 20 hours around the clock and burning myself out in the process. And when you are so busy and you're in your sympathetic nervous system and that sort of fight or flight, you become desensitized. So I actually didn't know what brought me joy. And that felt really confronting to me, to be that far away from the things that actually filled up my cup. So if anyone's listening to this and perhaps thinking, staring at a bit of paper, feeling this overwhelm or pressure right now of saying, well, I don't know what brought me joy in 2024, that's okay. I've been here. I'm sure everyone's been there before. One of the tips I would give around this, and it's something really simple, but it's really powerful, and I'd encourage all of you to do it, is in your phone. You know, we always carry around our phone, don't we? Blimmin' thing that follows us around everywhere. But in the notes section, I have a little mantra which says, joy flows freely through me. And under that, I wrote a list of everything that brings me joy, just when it does. So it's a live list that I keep open, and I just add to it, and I add to it. And the psychology of keeping a list like that, can you imagine? It just starts building, and that therefore becomes the filter in which you look at things and how you look at things. You start seeking out joy. You start seeing joy. You're not waiting for this big thing to come along with joy wrapped around its neck and a red bow. You're actually recognizing that joy and happiness and positivity comes from things that perhaps you might not have seen or you may have missed beforehand, because now you're actively filtering out things in your experience based upon actively seeking moments of joy. So I always like to start with this. And for me, I'll share one of mine. And as we go through this, don't feel pressure to share, but if you'd like to, I'd love to hear from you guys, both here and online as well, what some of your answers are to some of these questions. But I remember when I was doing this a few days ago, and I thought I've been going to this beautiful place here in Bali called Sunday Mood, and it's an ice bath and sauna place. And you go in and you have your little private, it's very quiet, and you go in and you've got your sauna there and your ice bath. And my daughters are 6 and 8, and my 6-year-old is an experienced junkie like me. Her name's Tallulah, and she loves to do anything Mummy does. Where are you going, Mummy? What are you doing, Mummy? Can I come with you, Mummy? And I hate saying no. And so I was like, you know what, I'm sure I can sneak her in. And so we went, and I said to the guys, oh, my daughter's with me, but don't worry, she'll be really quiet. Famous last words. And she came along, and she just thought it was the bee's knees. So it was this complete new first for her. And seeing her experience life through her 6-year-old eyes made me realize how they just are always on the edge of joy. Children are always just actively seeking joy and filtering life and experience through this joyful approach. And so I thought, what a great way of just remembering how to be joyful through looking through the eyes of children. And anyway, the room turned, I was so embarrassed when I opened the door into the corridor. There was water all out of there because she'd be jumping in and out of the ice bath, jumping underneath, going into the sauna, out of the sauna, just having a grand old time. But that topped my joy list this year because it was just such a joyful experience by being able to share that with her. So do any of you girls have anything that you'd like to share in terms of joy list? Don't feel any pressure, of course. If you do, I'll check online to see if anyone's got anything that they'd like to share. But do let me know. Oh, there's a little bit of a delay here.
I'll share one.
Yes, great.
Yeah,
Thanks, Elizabeth.
This year, I love celebrating successes of people who really mean something to me.
Yes.
And I felt so much joy celebrating friends' 50th birthdays.
Oh, beautiful.
Just surrounded by like all their favorite people and getting to know them in a bigger way.
Yes.
So that made me so happy.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And being present for that is such a wonderful gift as well, isn't it? So for anyone that didn't hear, Elizabeth, one of our guests on retreat at the moment, shared that she loved celebrating joy, and that was activated for her by being able to celebrate someone else's joy through their milestone 50th birthday and really seeing them acknowledged and honoured by all of their loved ones around them. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else like to share? I think we've got a little bit of a delay on the video here. Let's have a look. Wendy, travelling overseas with my adult daughters to me brought joy in 2024. Isn't that wonderful? I can't wait to be able to do that as well. Helen, I did the winter solstice swim in Tasmania. Gosh, you're brave, Helen. Oh my goodness, you don't need an ice bath, do you? Wow, that's incredible. Good for you. And I booked flights to do it again this year. And I go dipping in Tassie with a friend who lives there. Amazing. My trip to Escape Haven Cat in 2024 has brought me joy. Oh, that's so lovely. What else? Yes, so can relate. Booked for February. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you for those, lady. Deb, my Escape Haven visit brought me so much joy, and I discovered yoga. Isn't that awesome when you discover something new and finding the joy in that too? That's great. Thanks, ladies. Well, you clearly don't have any problems with our first question. Well done. So let's start into question 2. So question 2 is all about those influences in our life, namely people that impacted us in a positive way. So we all have those people in our lives that we can probably think of. Friends, families, maybe they're mentors, maybe they're actually people we've never even met. But through our interactions with them, whether it was following them, whether it was experiencing time with them, they've managed to shape our lives, change our lives, inspire our lives, change our paths in profound ways. And I think it's so great to be able to take that time to really acknowledge how that's happened. I think often we can sort of think of those people, but it's more than that. It's taking it down to another layer where it's saying, what was it that they've done that's actually impacted you or inspired you? So if you can just take some time to sort of think about what was it in terms of the impact you had with them that actually inspired your life, changed your life, impacted your life in a positive way. I wanted to share a couple of stories that might be good thought starters. One's actually, because I believe that people can impact your life positively, not necessarily by being a positive influence. And I find, for me personally, and everyone's different, but I'm really inspired by looking at sometimes examples of what I don't want to become, in terms of going, okay, well, that's definitely not the road I want to go down. And I remember really vividly, it was a really good aha moment for me. I was in St. Moritz in Switzerland, and I went there, I think it was 2018 or 17, and it a big deal going that far, going away from my young babies, going away from work at that time. It took a lot of money to go all the way over there, but we were recipients for a global award for work, and so I was like, it would be remiss of me not to do that. And one of my work colleagues, who's actually a competitor, was over there at the time, and we were sitting at the same table next to one another, which was great. And I remember before I left, my husband saying, he knew I was a workaholic, and he said, just make sure that you stop and smell the roses. No work, just be where your feet are. So be really, really present. Soak up this experience because you deserve to be there. You know, the little imposter syndrome that comes in at the best of times. You deserve to be there, and this is a big accomplishment for all of the team. So go and represent by being present, fully being present. And so his words really rang true in my head when I was sitting at this awards table at this event, and my competitor was next to me, and she was getting me to look at all of these angry text messages between her and a landlord that owned the retreat where she was operating out of. And I just remember in that moment thinking, gosh, it's so easy just to go down that path, isn't it? To go down a path where you're just wrapped up in the constant or relentless pursuit of work and focusing on the wrong things versus actually taking the time to celebrate how far you've come, to stay on a positive path and not allow stress or curveballs or things that come in, because they always come in. Curveballs are never going to stop. Stress is never going to stop. You know, these moments that we have to actually that become the big moments that really define our path don't come around all the time. So being able to really fully be present and to be there for them and to protect that time is such a gift to yourself. It's so kind to be able to do that for yourself, and it's such a big moment not to miss. And so that, to me, I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that because it showed me which path I needed to stay on. And the other piece that I wanted to mention is over just in the last 2 years, I've gone down the rabbit hole, a really great rabbit hole, by the way, but a rabbit hole in longevity. I had a really bad health scare. And so I dove into the world of longevity. We were talking about it earlier this week, Elizabeth. Podcasts, Huberman podcast, Peter Attia, all the books, all the podcasts, Diary of a CEO. I mean, every day I listen to these amazing speakers and subject matter experts. I have never met them. They have no idea who I am. But they have shaped my life in really profound ways. And I'm so grateful for that. So my point here is they don't have to be people you know. And if they are people that you know that have impacted your year, perhaps it was in a way that was surprising, but just focus on in what way was it? What did they represent? What did they stand for? Because being able to acknowledge that means so much in terms of building that environment for yourself in 2025. It's so scientifically proven and well researched and written about whatever our environment is will dictate our success. It will dictate such a big impact on our mental health, how we feel about ourselves, what we put out into the world. So if we're surrounding ourselves with these people that we're now acknowledging, whether that's through what we're taking in terms of what we listen to, whether it's who we surround ourselves to, whether it's editing perhaps some of those relationships we have where we know we shrink versus expand. This just gives you a really good roadmap at the start of the year of saying, yes, this is my inner circle, or no, this is where I need to just protect myself a little bit and perhaps take a, with love, compassionate step back. Because if we don't control our environment will very much control us, and that will really impact how we travel this. No matter how great your plan is, no matter how great your goals are, these people around us will have the biggest impact on how our year ends up. So, does that make sense? Yeah. Would anyone like to share someone that's played a really big role in their life over the last 12 months? Let me have a look online. Need my glasses. Just froze a little bit here. Oh, beautiful, Deb. Definitely your gypsy Sylvia, who's our tarot reader. Her insightfulness was of incredible value to me. She made me aware of what I'd been overlooking and steered me in a new path. I'm so grateful for her. Isn't that incredible? Just a one-time moment, right, where you take the time to meet someone that gives you that insight. She'll love reading that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? No pressure if you'd like to. We can go to the next question because I think that one is very self-explanatory, but incredibly important. And that's why it's number 2 on my list that follows joy. So let's go to question 3. This is literally my favourite question to ask people because I love the answer and I love the contemplation that it brings. But it is, and we ask this on retreat so much, but when was the last time you did something for the first time? And again, if I think back to that example of living a life through the eyes of a child, you know, when we're kids and we are always experiencing firsts. So life's joyful because it's just this curiosity. We meet life with this curiosity where we don't have these preconceived ideas of, you know, safety. That is important though. But you know, like there's no sort of like, oh no, if I do this, this will happen. We don't have that cynicism when we're young. And I think as we get older, we start to take less risks. We stay in that safe harbour. And no magic happens there. In our comfort zone, no magic happens there. It's comfortable. Of course it's comfortable and it's very, very safe. But the beautiful thing about when we're activating new experiences is that our confidence grows, our self-mastery grows, our belief in ourselves expands. And that's what I love on retreat because I see so many women that have travelled solo for the first time. Every week we hear, you know, I travelled on my own, I didn't think I could do it, and I did it, and I'm so proud of myself. Or maybe it's surfing, they conquered, you know, a big fear, which was taking to the waves and learning to surf in their 40s or their 50s and beyond. But just being able to activate that sheer skill of being able to say, I'm going to do something that I've never ever done before, allows you to do that. And again, like joy, it doesn't have to be anything big. It can just be something that's really small, because it's those things that seem insignificant that are actually really significant because they build on one another. And the cool thing about doing that, when you're doing new things, you're exposing yourself to new environments, you're exposing yourself to new people. I remember when I was single, I was like, well, I'm going to meet some guys that do the stuff that I want to do. I want to meet someone active, so I'm going to take up, hope my husband's not listening to this. Sorry, Trent. But I'm going to really get into wakeboarding, and I'm going to get into kite surfing. And so I did that, and I met all of these incredible guys and girls that did that. And so it just exposed me to a new side of myself. And that's the beautiful thing, is that we're constantly if we allow ourselves, in growth. We're constantly evolving. We're constantly meeting and realizing new versions of ourselves. And so therefore, there's all of this untapped potential that lies within us. And the only way that we can meet those new versions of ourselves is by trying new things, by going for it, by saying, I'm going to give that a go and I'm going to see if I like that. I don't know if I like it. Oh, can I play the clarinet? Who knows? Let's give it a go. And so that's my question, is really looking at when was the last time you tried something for the first time, and thinking about, if you don't know, that's really, really normal. Honestly, it stumps people when I ask them this question, because often we don't do that. We'll just stick to the stuff that we're really good at because we know we're good at it. It's comfortable. It doesn't require any extra effort. We like to avoid pain and hard work because we've got a big load as it is. And so we just keep on the same coast that we're going along with. So yeah, let me know in the comments about either what was the last new thing you tried, Or thinking through this year, what are some of those things that you'd love to explore? Has anyone heard of the Misogi Challenge? No. So the Misogi Challenge is something that I love to do every year, and it's basically a question of how do I want to define my year. So it's being able to do something that allows you, and the way it's been designed, to uncover what we're capable of as individuals. So it's something big. It's something that requires a lot of effort, a lot of intention, because it will define your year. It will be, I remember in 2025, that was the year I did fill in the blank. And so that can be for some people running a marathon. I've got 2 girlfriends that picked up marathon running when they were 50. Hi Vashti and Maya, if you're listening to this. And I'm so proud of them. It could be learning a new instrument. It could be learning a new language. It could be traveling solo. It could be doing something which requires effort, perseverance, persistence, patience. It requires a lot of time in order to actually acquire this new skill or this new challenge. But it defines your year. And it's so important in terms of what you pick, because that is how you will remember your year. And that will shape so much of what you do this year based on the courage and commitment it took to show up and not to lose pursuit of this goal, this Misogi Challenge. And the great thing about it, as you can imagine, when you're doing something that's big and that's sizable, is it has the biggest impact on your mental health. And so it already makes your year a success by doing this. It doesn't matter if you finish the marathon. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you mastered the language and you can be fluent in it. Or that, say you want to, like this year, I want to learn to dance really well. I remember being at this New Year's party at our friend's hotel a few days ago, and I had to put the kids to bed, and a number of my friends are South American, and they grew up learning to dance and being able to feel the music, and they are great at those sorts of events, where I, from being from New Zealand, I felt a little bit like a bystander. And I was like, and my husband's great, he's such a chauffeur, he loves to dance. I was like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to put myself right out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to learn how to dance, and I'm going to do it in a public setting where they have a dance recital at the end of the year, and that's going to be my Misogi. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do that. And the reason that I wanted to do that, because it ties into how I want to show up this year. My word is all around alive. And so that's what I want for this year. After a year of health and healing last year, this is about really being able to take that beautiful foundation of vitality and just fully express this aliveness. So that's how I came up with my Misogi. But have a bit of a think about, what your year could look like this year, what you want to bring to that, and then let that trickle down into what challenge you decide to set yourself. Maybe I'll post my dance recital at the end of the year. Does anyone want to share, before we go on to the next 2 questions, but does anyone want to share what's some new thing that they're curious about perhaps trying this year? I'll have a look at you ladies that are online to see if anything's come through in the comments. Oh, Deb, surfing with Poodle at Escape Haven. At 64 years old, I learnt to surf for the very first time. I had this big smile in the water the entire time. Oh, Deb, that's so beautiful. I love that. I'm so proud of you for doing that. To get to that space and to overcome, you have to overcome so much fear and so much, so much resistance to do that. And the fact that you did that just expands your life in so many ways. Thank you for sharing that. That's so cool. Melissa, I swam 1 kilometre. Oh, wonderful. That's very impressive. Kat, I travelled to Escape Haven from the US. It was the first time travelling alone. Now I know I can do it. And isn't that the beautiful thing? When we live outside of our comfort zone and do something that scares us, what do we say to ourselves? We prove to ourselves that we can do it. We're saying to ourselves, I rise to challenges. I'm someone that sets myself a goal that scares me, and I do it anyway, and I succeed. And so you imagine what comes after that, or what lies on the other side of that. That's why I always say on retreat, I love hearing about what happens after retreat, because I know, and I love following the stories of what follows after those comfort zones have been expanded in such beautiful ways. Anything from you, ladies? Yeah, and that's what this does. It does. You don't have to have a lot of the answers right now. It just gets the wheels turning as you start sort of percolating this stuff. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, so for these next two questions, I would love you ladies in your workbook or on the back of it to draw a big bucket. So a big bucket, kind of like one of those buckets that you fill with water, or you put your Christmas tree in, like we do in New Zealand. Put our Christmas tree in it and we fill it up with sand. But draw a big bucket, and then at the top of the bucket, if you can just put in some arrows that go into, arrows that go into that, down into the opening of the bucket. And then at the bottom of the bucket, if you can put some big, do you want one of these in the pen? There you go. And if you can put some big circles at the bottom of the bucket, big enough that you can write words in these. I'll just give you a moment to do that. Okay, has everyone done that? All right, so the next question is casting your mind to things that fill up that bucket. So what were you? I call them tank toppers. A girlfriend of mine back in New Zealand, Kat, she calls it tank toppers and energy zappers. So we're going to look at two questions. The first is tank toppers, and the second is energy drainers. And I like to think of energy as being able to fill this bucket. It can be filled by things you do. It can be filled by places that you go to, by people that you surround yourself with that make you feel alive to be around them. I like to think and be really mindful. There's this monk, he's amazing. I don't know if anyone's heard of him before, called Dandapani. He's this incredible monk, and he writes a lot about energy and the importance of your awareness around your energy and how you spend your energy. And I remember listening to him once years ago, and he talked about it saying, well, imagine if your awareness and your energy, you treated it the same way you treat money, whereby you were very conscious of what you were trading it for. Okay, I'm trading my energy and my attention for this. Is that a good exchange? Or I'm trading it for that. Is it a good exchange? I'm sitting at my desk and I've got 10 tabs open. How am I using my energy and my awareness here? Is that draining me, or is that topping it up? And so I always think if we can think of that or reframe it in terms of associating it with something that we see as important, like money, for example, then we'll start treating it in a different way. And we'll start being really, really conscious of who we're allowing, what we're allowing, what things, what people, what places, what experiences we're allowing in our energy field. And being really aware of if they are adding to it, or if actually they're the holes in our bucket and they're allowing everything to empty as a result. And that's what's so key, if you think about it, about being able to think about how are we topping up the energy that we have on a daily basis. Because that's the beauty of energy, is we can cultivate more. But equally, if we're not careful, we can also lose it and have these holes in our bucket that we didn't even realize. We didn't even realize what was draining us. We didn't even realize how bad we felt until we actually asked ourselves those questions and took a step back. And that's why I've started with the positive one, and then I've gone on to the one that's a little bit more confronting, because it is quite confronting when we have some realizations or aha moments about what some of those holes in the bucket are. Perhaps they're things we actually don't want to acknowledge, because some of it can be a bit painful. Because once you acknowledge something, then what happens? You've got a choice, right? You're like, okay, well, now I can do something about it, or I can just bury my head in the sand and be an ostrich for a little while and not pretend it's not there or not do anything about it for a while. So let's start with the positive one. Let's start with all of the beautiful tank toppers. What are the things, what are the places, the things we do, the activities we do, or the people we surround ourselves with that make us feel alive? What gives us energy? To share a story, I'm a big believer in the morning routine. I don't know if you guys, do you know the 5 a.m. Club and Robin Sharma? Yeah. The whole belief is win your morning, win your day. So again, it's something that there's so much research on in terms of how to set yourself up to have the best day, and being able to use those golden moments in the morning when you first wake up to give yourself a lot of energy. You know, as you get on during the day, how your cognitive load just gets more and more and more, and you can just feel, you get that afternoon slump where you're like, I literally can't take in any more information. My mood's lowered, I just feel a little bit scratchier, and you know, you start the day with a bit of a pep in your step, and then it can just go south from there. So the principle of being able to top up your bucket and having these practices in the morning that help is that you set yourself up to have much more sustained energy during the day. So you're more productive, you've got a much better mood, you've got much better energy, so you make better choices. And so during the pandemic, my husband and I did this 5 a.m. club, and we would get up and now that's when we wake up. It can be annoying sometimes because we've set our body clocks no matter what time we go to bed to wake up then. But very much being able to wake up early, not going on our phone, not checking our WhatsApp, not checking our messages, being very, very mindful of, if we do that, our dopamine in our brain rises. And so we're using a lot of our dopamine, which we want to save for later on, for the good stuff when we need it. Don't need dopamine in the morning. You already have, a lot of energy then. So it's being able to do things like going out and getting, it's called a lux meter, where you go and get enough sunshine, sun in your eyes first thing in the morning. Being able to do movement first thing in the morning, whether it's awake, whether it's being able to do stretches. Dr. Raja, Ayurveda doctor on retreat, talks about, doing simple Ayurveda practices to prepare your body and your mind in the morning. Some simple breath work, some journaling when our mind is really clear. It's not cluttered up with all of the, crap that's happened during the day. It's clear and clean. So you'll be able to distill some things that are sitting there and really come up with some, great ideas first thing in the morning. So those are some examples anyway of tank toppers that are really helpful. Other things that I do during the day is, does anyone know the Calm app? Mm-hmm. The Calm app, it's great, right? Haley, it's an app online, and it's just got these little 1-minute revivers during the day. Everyone's got a minute. And that's the great thing about time. Whether we use it on things like this, it's going to get used up anyway, right? It's going to get used. So I'm like, well, I'm using my time with things that's going to keep my energy high. I've got 2 young kids. I've got a really boisterous golden retriever of a husband. I've got friends and a big work life going on and social life. So I need a lot of energy to be able to run all of that. So that's why I'm so particular and so mindful of just what are these tank toppers and how do I keep this pursuit of my energy levels high. Is that making sense? Does that, yeah, great. Let me have a little look here. How about you ladies online? What a great lesson from the monk. Thanks, Carolyn. Nice to see you. You're lucky I didn't mention you. You're one of my gurus. How I spend my energy from a conscious point of view. Yeah, definitely going to pay more attention to building up a credit instead of debt this year. Yeah, it's a great way of looking at it, isn't it? Helen, I've enjoyed monthly 1.5-hour massages since September 2024. It allows me space to relax and give myself time to de-stress. Helps with muscle soreness from gym workouts, such a necessity. Yeah, what a great recovery is so important. It's a really good point because we can't perform if we don't recover. And it seems so counterintuitive that we need to slow down to speed up, but that's exactly what happens when we place importance on recovery. That's how we'll be able to perform better. And it's such a great way to retain our energy and build that up as well. All right, so let's move on to the leaky bucket. As I explained before, this very much is those circles they asked you to draw in your bucket, but really thinking about what are the things that have drained your energy this year. So I'm sure, like me, you've walked away from an experience, a person, a place even, that you just feel yourself shrink a little bit. A kind of, a good way of explaining is it sort of just takes the gloss off. Where you're like, I just feel icky, I don't feel great, and I'm not sure why. And so then you sort of bury it and carry on. But what this question does is that, calls you to sort of really lean into that. What are those experiences, those activities, those places that make you feel that way? And sometimes when life's really busy, it's really hard to recognise what those are. It took me years to move away from the guilt over leaving my corporate career because I recognised that it was actually my job at the time that made me feel that way. And I remember distinctly some days I would go home and I would just feel like I needed to scratch my skin off. I just needed to get out of this. I needed to shed the skin. I just felt so icky after giving so much energy to something that wasn't right for me at that time. Very grateful for the experience, but it wasn't right for me. It was a huge energy drainer. But I did it because the forces of dogma are so powerful, aren't they? The voice of, of my former self saying, what about all those years of training you did? What about all of that, that career you built? You shouldn't do that. And so all of those well-meaning influences that we have can sometimes drown out that intuition that we have with ourselves. And when we stop listening to those cues, our body knows the way. Our body knows what's right for us and what isn't. And when we start departing from that, like I mentioned with that joy list, when I was so desensitized from what brought me happiness, we stop losing that ability to understand. Our fight and flight indicators break, and we stop being able to really understand what's intrinsically right for us and wrong for us. And if we do that, those holes in the bucket, that bucket you've drawn, just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And where does all the energy go? Where does it flow? It falls through the holes. So this can be quite a confronting exercise, this question, but I just encourage you beyond this workshop to really explore that and to be really honest with yourself, knowing that it does draw a decision on what you need to do, but being really mindful of the obstacles you'll face and being aware of them. So therefore, when they come up, you're like, yeah, I was aware this was going to happen. I was aware I was going to feel guilt around that, and that's okay. Continue to lean into that. You don't have to do anything straight away, but just be really mindful of the fact that it exists. And just by that admission that it exists, that there's some leaky holes, you'll figure out a plan. When the time's right, you'll figure out a plan. Okay, so let's move. How are we going for time? Oh, I better shake my tail feather a little bit. I like to talk a lot. Okay, what were the biggest obstacles you faced? So this is a good one to think about as well. But obstacles slow us down. They're things that can really blindside us and make our journey longer. As often we try to go around them versus removing them or acknowledging that perhaps these obstacles are just illusions and going through them instead. And the great thing about doing this, especially when you go on to stage 2 of this process, which is all about setting your goals, is goals are all good and well, but life is going to happen. There are going to be speed bumps. There are going to be unexpected things that are completely outside of your control that can happen. And so by being able to acknowledge that, try and predict that, consider these things, it might help shape shift what you lay down in terms of your plans, or it may allow you to meet them and go, yep, I knew that this might come up, and so here's my plan B, because I've already thought through that. So they don't hold as much weight when that happens. You know, I'm sure like me, you've had a great laid plan and then something happens and you just abandon it. You go, oh, well, I knew that wasn't going to work anyway. For me, I remember that a big obstacle I had, so going through, you know, a lot of the health journey I went through last year, I was like, right, I need to meditate every day. So I had my calm app, or sometimes I'd have Frankie and the Escape Haven method, and I'd wake up and I would do that. And our kids have started adopting our morning practices, so they now wake up early, so we don't have that time without them, which is great. It's great that they're doing a lot of this stuff with us in the morning. But I was finding that I was leading my meditation to sort of my third activity of the day after I'd done journaling and after I'd done this Ayurveda oil pulling. And then Lula would come in, Mummy, what are you doing? I'll be like, sitting on my cloud chair, really in the moment, and this little voice and this little face would be kind of breathing on my cheek. And so this was happening morning after morning, and so it just allowed me to go, okay, so I know this now is happening. This is now the new normal, where she'll wake up at, 6 a.m, so I need to do it earlier than that. And so I just adjusted that way. And so, yeah, just consider and reflect on when you're thinking about, what you did last year, what were the goals you went after, what were some of those big obstacles that came in? What were some of the things that you weren't prepared for that actually happened? And how, I guess a key question therefore is, how did you allow that to shape your path? Did it throw you off your path temporarily? Did it throw you off it permanently, where you abandoned it that year? Or did it make you go, oh, I'm even more convinced I need to do this? And did it actually give you even more energy and commitment to do what you needed to achieve? Often fear is one of the biggest obstacles that we face. And, fear is important. There's a reason that we have fear, obviously. But it's what we do with fear that's really important. And I find, particularly as women, sometimes we don't give our very best. We don't give our A game because we're worried, well, what will happen if I do that and I still fail? I don't want to feel that. That would feel really painful. So I'm going to give, my A- version, for example. Can anyone relate to that? The big problem, though, by doing that is we limit our potential. And how sad to think that we've got all of this headroom that is, potential that we haven't realised yet. And that's where we really underestimate what we're capable of. So you can imagine that when you're sort of setting your plans of where you want to get to for the year, and fear actually, and unfounded fear that we haven't even looked at, has been a big reason why we might not have got to where we wanted to get to. We didn't realise the dream we were after, or perhaps we'd achieved half of the goals that we set ourselves. Because at the end of the day, the real obstacle wasn't anything. It wasn't any person, it wasn't any place, it wasn't any lack of resource. It was ourself. And I think that's quite a humbling realisation to make sometimes, is the biggest thing we fear is our own power, is our own abilities. And so we just hold ourselves back a little bit because we don't want to fail, and we don't want to not be able to not get to where we want to go. So be really, really mindful of that and start looking at it. You'll see in the book here, in the workbook, there's a lot of space that's been given here because this is so normal. It's nothing to fear. Fear isn't to be feared. But the more that we can look at some of these unfounded fears, the more we dissipate them. And the more, they really fade away. Fear has no power when we actually look at it. So you'll see here on this page, deconstruct the fear that you believe held you back this year, and then explore what was the downside if I had taken action, and what was the upside of that fear. And so if you can go through those and really reflect on those will give you a really good gauge about what you're prepared to let stand in your way or not this year. So I can't encourage you enough to spend a lot of time on this part. We know, for example, that with a lot of plans or a lot of goals, and I hear this a lot, I've experienced this myself, and it's very commonplace, but there might be typical things that come up every year that stand in our way. It could be the anniversary of something painful. We all have those dates that can bring up, that are quite loaded, that are quite triggering. It might be Christmas, it might be Valentine's, whatever it is, but those ones that can take us off course, that can allow fear to kind of come up, and then sort of where we step away from the pursuit of what we're after and abandon our plans or self-sabotage our efforts because of this. So it's just bringing a lot of consciousness and awareness to that, writing it down. There's so much power that comes in that, and therefore by doing that, not allowing that to happen this year. So does that make sense before I go into our last question? Oh yeah, question? No? Okay. Great. Great. Are there any questions? I haven't even asked if you guys want any questions here. I'm so mindful of the time, but does anyone have any questions that's come up so far before we go into our last question? Hi Kylie, hi Tracy. Hi Lucy. Let me know if there's any other questions. The final one is, what did I learn? So this is a beautiful one to just cap the sequence of questions and reflections on. An equally powerful flip of this, do you know what it is? What did I learn? But also, what did I unlearn? And so one of the biggest teachers can be, what were the things that I actually had to reframe this year? What were those lessons that I can bank in terms of what I learnt? But what did I unlearn? So what are those things that I don't want to do anymore? Those mistakes that I no longer want to repeat? Those patterns that I've had enough of that are not going to hold a place in my life again this year? And being able to go on, I see one of our guests outside. Things that you knew were so at the start of the year, but as the year went on, you realised you had to unlearn them. So, for example, it could be when I get home from work and, say you've got a corporate job and it's a really busy one. I like to unwind with a glass of wine that ends up being a couple of glasses of wine, because it helps me unwind, it de-stresses me, and it allows me to sleep better. So perhaps this is a learning that you had, that you always believed. And then what you realised is actually it meant that you had a crap sleep, that you woke up feeling awful, you woke up feeling tired because you didn't go into your deep REM sleep. And actually it wasn't a truth that you told yourself. So it's those sorts of things to explore that are worthy of exploring, to understand what you don't want to take through into 2025 as well. So time's up, ladies. I can't believe I'm actually on time. I feel very happy about that. I hope that was really helpful for you. Please let me know in the comments if you've got any questions about this. As I said at the start, this is stage 1 of the 4-stage process that Trent and I go through. You can probably see why he jumped off the boat and swam to the beach party instead of doing it with me 5 years ago, because it is quite in-depth. But this is stage 1, is the reflection process. Stage 2 2 is where we set goals. So we go through taking all of these reflections. But as I said, I go through this in the most depth, more than any of the other parts. And that's why I wanted to take you guys through it. Stage 2, I use Wheel of Life as a framework. You can use whatever framework you like, but it's about goal setting, and through that, the identity of who I want to become through my goals. And then stage 3 is developing the systems, the habits, the actions that will get me there. And then stage 4, the last part, is about measuring that. And we do that, the measurement, on a monthly basis, where we'll go back to our goal setting framework, our Wheel of Life, and then look at how we're tracking. Because this isn't a one and done. Okay, I've done it, it's January the 2nd, I've done it, I can close it up, put it in the drawer, gather dust, and I'm set for the year. Unfortunately, nothing good or that produces great results is that easy, right? And we wouldn't want it to be, because that's half of the fun, having that challenge and really allowing it to integrate into your day-to-day life and to shape your thinking, the choices, the decisions that you're making, where you're spending your time, what you're saying no to, and what you're saying yes to. So I encourage you to hold on to this, to print this out if you haven't already, and to just keep revisiting it. If you're interested in those other parts, let me know in the comments below. Just write part 2, something along those lines, and I'll record something. I don't know if I'll do another live, but I'll record with Putu some videos to help you navigate that, because as I said, like, the more you put into consciously planning your year, the more you're going to get out of it. It's a natural exchange. And so you're the driver in the seat of your life, and you can make this year as incredible as you can imagine, with some, great planning, and then being able to show up for it and guiding yourself on those right choices as the year goes on. So I hope that was helpful. I'll have a look if there's any questions just before I sign off and love you and leave you. But yeah, thank you for your time today. Here you go. Thank you. You're welcome. Great timing, absolutely. Wonderful. This is great. Is there a book or someone we can get the other parts? Kat, there isn't, but I will create with Poodle. We'll either do it as a live. I haven't done a live since 2020, so I might just shoot a video with Poodle, and we can pop those in the Escape Haven method, or do a live if I feel up to it. It's always interesting looking at, especially when you're doing it in person and also on camera after a while. But yeah, thank you, ladies. I hope you found it really helpful. And my wish for you is that you have beautiful years that you deserve. Bye for now. See you.